Hey, it's Michela Quilici here, business growth and marketing expert. I help business owners, consultants, coaches, experts like you navigate your business growth on purpose. Welcome to my broadcast on becoming an elegant leader. Be seen, be heard, be valued. I believe that to really be seen, be heard, and be valued requires us to really step into who we really are and confidently step into our own self-leadership. So I created this safe space where you can come and join me and be inspired and empowered to really step into the best version of you so that you can create massive success for yourself. So welcome. I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you for joining in and thank you for watching. So today, what do I want to talk to you about? I want to talk to you about some tips for taking the stage and for opening doors to your business success, or to even more success for yourself in business. So that's what the topic is going to be today. And one of the many facets that I work on with my clients is to help them really be seen and be heard so that they can influence and motivate and make an impact in their businesses. And so there's typically a couple of problems or symptoms that show up in their businesses. And so I want to share with you, as I go through this list of some of the main problems and symptoms, I want you to comment in the box below which one of these or which 2 or 3 of these might resonate with you. So here we go. Here's the list. One is not being seen or being valued or being respected. Hey Dina, thanks for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about tips for taking the stage and for opening doors to more business success. So I was just talking about the problems and symptoms that are happening and that show up that I've seen in my coaching practice with my clients. And if any of these resonate with you, please comment in the box below. So the first one is not being seen, not being valued, or being respected, even though you might have tons of experience and you're awesome at what you do, but you don't feel like you're really being valued or being respected for what you offer. Maybe some people are trying to drive down your prices, or just not really able to give you that confidence that they know that you're worth what you're putting forward. So that's the first one. The second one is shrinking back. So this is that feeling of really shrinking back, playing small, not using your voice, maybe being more quiet rather than speaking up. That would be another symptom that comes up. The third one is really hard time opening doors to business opportunities, or maybe asking for the sale, charging what you're worth, converting more clients. That's typically what shows up when you feel like you're not really able to own and claim your value. Dina, thanks for sharing. Yeah, something that resonates with you is you think you're not valuing. I think in not valuing myself rather than others. Yeah, that's definitely something that comes up for sure. So you're not the only one that feels that way. The fourth problem or symptom that comes up often is a lack of confidence in promoting self and really being able to promote yourself or talk about yourself, especially when talking to others who are in maybe key positions, higher level positions, executive positions, or even prospects sometimes. So those are the sort of problems and symptoms that might show up for you. And but let's be honest, if any one of those things is showing up for you, what we all really want is to be seen and heard. We want to have confidence and courage to speak up. We want to be able to develop a clear and compelling message that influences others, that impacts others, that motivates others to take action, to do something, whether it's to hire us or to actually perform that call to action in your marketing message that you want them to take. Achieving better results and more success. And to be honest, I really do feel that at a basic psychological human need is we have the need to feel visible. We have the need to feel like that we matter, and that people are really hearing us and seeing us. And so as I was thinking about this topic for today, and I was thinking about, some of the problems and some of the desires that we would want, and how it's shown up for me in my life, I was thinking about what I could share with you to kind of talk a little bit about how this has resonated with me in the past. And so for me, I have one particular story that I would love to share. Dina, you're in the process of finding and using your own voice. I have seen a shift in my business since I've been looking within and allowing myself to be heard. Totally. Finding and using your own voice, it's a journey. It is so a journey, and it takes time. And so just acknowledging the fact that you're doing that and acknowledging the fact that you have seen a shift in your business since you've been really allowing yourself to step into that is really awesome. So good for you. That's fabulous. I would love to hear and maybe to share any tips that you have for how you did that. How did you said you're in the process of finding and using your voice. So how did you go about doing that? What are some of the key things that you think were monumental, or what were the baby steps that really helped you build that confidence and to be able to really see and determine what your voice is? Would love for you to share. Thanks so much. Okay, so I've got a story that I want to share, which is one of the many, many stories that I have about my journey of taking the stage and being seen and being heard and finding my voice. And so this particular story starts with me being really young and growing up in an Italian family of immigrant parents. And my parents immigrated in the late 50s from Italy, and they cast a vision for themselves for a better life. And so they came here, they had little money, little connections. They didn't know English, and essentially they set off to make a life here. And so they both became entrepreneurs, each with their own separate businesses, and away they went. And so I grew up in a very traditional Italian home, and it was all about family and food and passion. And my father really ruled the house with an iron fist, so to speak. So I grew up in a very patriarchal home. And so I started off, as a young child. I remember being 5 years old and being, standing up in kindergarten, reading Robert Frost poetry. And I loved to be seen and heard. And I'm a Leo. My sun sign is a Leo. So Leos are all about performing. And so as a child, I think I was really embodying my Leo-ness. So my lioness. So that's what I remember. But I also remember being a super hypersensitive child, really shy, really introverted, introspective, quiet, simultaneously. And so I had these sort of dual parts of my personality. And I do remember that, growing up, I was actually really quite scared of my dad. He was loud, and, he was passionate, and he had very particular views, which, were very well known. And so as a child, within being who I was, quiet, shy, and hypersensitive, I began to really not feel super comfortable and safe in the environment at home or out in the world. And so going from being 5 years old and being super open and willing to perform to being in a place just several years later where I found myself at 8 years old, I was developing a real fear around speaking, a real fear around showing up. And I developed a really terrible speech impediment. And it was almost like my throat was just being kind of shut down. And I was really scared of voicing my opinions for fear of not being accepted and not being heard. And so I developed this stutter, which was terrible, and started to feed the fear and make things worse. I was bullied. I was made fun of. There was a lot of judgment, a lot of shame, and I became smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in my own little world, trying to keep myself as safe as possible. So I spoke less and less and shrunk back more and more, to the point where I said to myself, if I can't speak without stuttering, I'm not going to speak at all. And so I didn't speak a lot, to be honest. And so that really shaped who I was, obviously, and how I was in the world and who I was being in the world. And so that growth kind of shut down at that time. And I really was not, not free to feel and be myself. So I was heartbroken. I remember going to bed every night praying to God that God would take the stutter away and that I would speak normally again and I wouldn't have to deal with all of this. And every morning I woke up and I was completely heartbroken that I still had this issue. And so I became a master at avoidance and calculating danger zones and all this kind of stuff. I was allowing my disfluency to dictate my life. And I was miserable. I was always in fear, frustrated, and living in terror of being found out that I had this crazy little secret that I had a speech impediment. In my heart of hearts, though, I knew that that wasn't authentically who I was, because I knew who I was just years before, feeling so free and being able to speak normally. And so, I didn't get a lot of support. A lot of people thought I didn't have a problem, so they just kind of dismissed me. Another group of people said that I had a motor skill issue, or my brain wasn't wired right, was something else somebody told me. And other people just kind of ignored it and just didn't acknowledge that I had something that I was struggling with and needed help. So when I was 18 years old, that was the defining moment for me. I decided I was done. I decided that I was done with the fear, done with shrinking back. I was done with being afraid. And so I made a decision that enough was enough, and I took back control of my own growth and spent the many decades after that healing myself from that in many different facets. But the point is that I made a decision, and I made a conscious choice to take the stage and to stand up and to be seen and to be heard. And that became more powerful than the fear of shrinking back. And so my whole why and my whole purpose became about being seen and being heard myself, finding my own voice, and now inspiring and empowering other people to create their own success, create their own awareness, and reclaim their own voices. And so that little story ties a little bit into my why, but it's really about that conscious decision about stepping up and stepping out. And so this leads me back to the business owner and you, and how these problems and these symptoms that I mentioned earlier can really stunt growth. They can stunt not only how you show up in your life, but particularly your business growth and your business success, whatever that looks like for you. And so I've got some tips that I want to share with you, 3 tips in particular that I'd love to share about how you can start to either begin to or excel your ability to really stand out, reclaim your voice, and take the stage. Before I do that, I know I've got a comment here, so let's see if I can have a look. Dina, baby steps. First in raising my prices as they were underpriced. Then when I started to believe in my value and I stopped giving discounts on my services, the right clients started coming into my world. And secondly, I've been looking within and, I can't see the rest right now, but it'll probably pop up in a minute. So thank you for sharing that. Definitely baby steps, definitely. And definitely implementing those few things and then starting to see the changes and the ripple effect that occurs when you start taking those baby steps to really navigate a different route. So awesome. Thanks for sharing, Dina. Okay, so being able to take the stage, it really requires a lot of work, as Dina has shared here. It's a process and it's a journey, and journeys take time, they take dedication, they take practice, and they take really a relentless passion for doing it, and a lot of compassion for self, I find, in when you are walking this journey, to really acknowledge yourself for the changes that you are going through, and the missteps that you might have and the falls that you might take, and just really having a lot of compassion, and ultimately a lot of respect for the journey, which I think is it's a heroic journey. And so all we can really do is respect the fact that we've decided to step on that path, and that we're doing it. So 3 main tips I want to share. The first one is you must adopt a courageous mindset to step up. Courage is the first step. And you've got to give yourself permission to be seen and be heard. And you've got to take that courageous step and make a decision. So it's about making a conscious choice that this is something you want to do. Because it's not just going to happen. And if you don't make these conscious choices, and if you don't take these courageous baby steps, then what sometimes can happen, a lot of the times, is it just it never happens, and you just keep shrinking back, and you kind of settle and tolerate for what you've got, which is not necessarily what you want. So adopting a courageous mindset is definitely the first tip. Baby steps, for sure. And so what to do, and we've got great tips from Dina here, is when you've got that courageous mindset, you've decided you're going to make a decision you're going to make a conscious decision to do it, then you got to identify what it is that you're going to do and implement to really take action. So baby steps is a great thing. Identify a couple of those key things that you can do, that you can start implementing in your business right away. And just know that this is actually something that is always happening. So making a courageous decision and a conscious choice is something that I know I do every single day. So it's not just something that you do once and then you kind of hope for the best. It's like you're developing a new muscle in your body, in your brain. And muscles, you need to work out the muscles in order to build them. And so you're developing new habits, you're developing a new way of being, you're developing a new mindset. And so that's why giving yourself that compassion and that permission, and just to know that you're doing it every day. Every day you wake up and you decide whether today is going to be the day that you're going to take a courageous step. So tip number 2 is to understand your value and rock your superpowers. So it's what I find, and what I've noticed within myself and with my clients, is that as women who can handle a lot, we've got a lot on our plate, we're very capable, we've got a lot of skills, we take on a lot of responsibilities and have a lot of things going on in our world. Sometimes we forget, and sometimes we don't really realize, like a body feeling realize, how cool we are and how awesome we are and how amazing we are. And so the first step to understanding your value is to get enough perspective so that you really feel that value and you can really see how valuable you are. So one tip that I have for doing that is to sit down and make a list of perhaps all of your challenges and all of your successes or accomplishments that you've achieved, or that you've worked through this past year, and to really actually write them down and take some time to reflect on them and to really take in and receive what you've actually done. Something that I like to do as well, which might help, is to take a look at yourself through the years. So you could take it a decade at a time. So you could break it down into, what happened in the first 20 years of your life, or the first 10 years of your life, and then from 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30, and 30 to 40, et cetera, and take a look at it in a more global, big picture perspective. What happened? How did you change over the decades? What did you overcome? What did you deal with? What successes, what achievements, and to really take the long view. And then again, receiving it and really taking it in and seeing, just how amazing you are and how far you've come. I have found that has really been super, super helpful. The second piece of understanding your value is rocking your superpowers. Now, the thing is, you can't rock your superpowers unless you know what they are. So the second part of that equation, when you kind of go through what you've accomplished and your challenges and that kind of thing, you can start to tease out what might be some of your maybe 3 to 5 superpowers. These are things that your strengths, things that you're really good at, things that you love and that you're super passionate about, and that kind of define who you are or how you are. And so once you really take some time to figure out your value, and these superpowers, then that'll really enable you to understand it and to start rocking it. The third tip is to communicate with confidence so people will listen. Now, this seems really kind of, something simple. Well, yeah, communicate with confidence. But it's really key because you're making an intention to communicate with confidence so that people will listen. Because not all communication is really heard, and not all communication is really understood or listened to. Quite honestly, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of distraction, and so making an intention to communicate with confidence so people will listen is a really key component to this. So you want to reflect on the words that you're using, how you're using those words, what kind of nonverbal communication are you communicating, are you portraying? Be conscious of the difference between your intention, what you are thinking you're communicating or what you intend to communicate, and the impact that that's actually having on the listener. Because what I have found is that sometimes my intention is not being translated in a way that's being heard. And so one thing that you'll want to do besides reflect on the words you're using and how you're showing up and the nonverbal cues and that how those might be impacting your message, the one thing that you want to take a look at is communicating in a way people will listen. And in order to do that, you need to be clear on who the listener is. What is important to the listener? What does the listener value? What are they going to be listening for? And make sure that you are then reverse engineering your communication so that it's in alignment with how that listener is going to be filtering and receiving your words and your nonverbal communication. So, recap. 1, adopt a courageous mindset and step up. Give yourself permission to be seen and heard and make a conscious decision to do so. The second tip is understanding your value and rocking your superpowers and making sure that you take some time to figure those things out and really feel them not only in your mind, but really feel them in your body. And the third tip is to communicate with confidence so that people will listen, and making sure that you are evaluating and reflecting on the words and the nonverbal communication that you're using, and also making sure that your message is matching and is in alignment with what the listener wants to hear and how they're going to be translating and perceiving your message. So those are my tips. Let me know if any of these resonate with you. Would love to hear any comments or feedback that you have on any of that. So let me just see what we've got here. Okay. So, as always, I truly appreciate you listening and watching today. Hopefully some of these tips have been helpful and you'll be able to take one nugget away and implement it in your life and in your business right away. Would love to know if you do end up doing that, and if you're willing to make a commitment and a declaration to do that, please pop a note in the comments below about what out of what I've said today you're going to make a commitment to implement or to check out or to reflect on more. If you have found this video helpful, would love for you to share it with your colleagues, with your clients, with your friends. As always, if you want to be notified of any future broadcasts at the end of the video, just make sure you subscribe to future broadcasts so you get notified. And you know, my whole sole purpose is to ignite you into your own awareness so that you can be the best version of you. So I dare you to be visible, ignite your potential, express your brilliance. The world is waiting. What are you waiting for? Thanks for watching. See you next time.